In a nutshell, though, so we don't leave people hanging and don't be too mysterious about it, I'm looking at my DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. I've got actually one, two, three, four, five of them. The three, the 3R, the 4TR, the five, and the 5TR. Because I'm a nerd and I like to go back and historically look at when things were added or subtracted or whatever. But the DSM, at least in America, is how we classify what's in front of us. Now there's a guy named Jonathan Shedler, and I'll put the link. We can put the link to the article so everybody can read it. He talks about how psychiatric diagnoses are not diseases, and there's a very distinct difference. We talked about language before and definitional value of language. His article basically says the DSM criteria only describe what you're seeing. They do not attribute causality, meaning you can't tell why something happens. So if somebody's depressed, the clinician should be asking, why are you depressed? Not simply treating the depression. Now, that all being said, there's a set of criteria for every diagnosis. Every diagnosis is known as a disorder. That's the name of the book. And until they change the book or take it out, it's a disorder, meaning it's not ordered, it's not typical, and it has life-interfering problems. That's the definition of a mental disorder. It's clinically significant distress or impairment in important areas of functioning. It's a little bit longer than that, but that's the nutshell. Okay. If you're meeting criteria, you have a disorder. If you're not meeting criteria because you're taking your medication or it's managed, my argument is you don't have the disorder anymore. You don't get to go around saying, I have bipolar disorder if you're managing it well. I absolutely, when I was a child and probably some of my adulthood, had classic ADHD symptomatology. It absolutely interfered with some of my academics, probably some of my professional stuff too, until I learned to control my impulses. That's what ADHD is. It's an impulse control issue. Now, how we get there is not addressed in the DSM. Personally, I would say that it's because I have an overactive brain. I'm smarter than the average bear, and I get bored easily because I think that I master things faster than I actually do. That tends to be pretty common. That or trauma history. Kids can't control their emotions because they were never taught to, because they were in an unsafe environment. It comes out looking like ADHD because they're distracted. They're hyperactive. All right. But once you get to train your brain and train yourself to navigate those situations, you don't have ADHD anymore. You can have the tendencies toward it, but once you realize that you're doing that, you control yourself and you don't act out of impulsivity. You don't become distracted. You do return your attention to whatever's requiring your attention. You don't meet the criteria for ADHD. You don't get to walk around going, I have adult ADHD. I'm ADHD. I am. Because you're in control. Now, I don't understand why people have to identify as that. I don't understand the identity as diagnosis or diagnosis as identity. I truly don't. What I think I understand is that taking it away from somebody leaves them without a sense of knowing what to do. And I think that threatens. So when I say you don't have ADHD once you've accomplished, impulse control or distraction avoidance, you don't have bipolar disorder once you've mastered your emotions and navigated your moods so that they don't swing out of control. I think what happens is it runs counter to a cultural narrative that says, you're broken, you can never be fixed, continue staying a victim, because there's social capital in being a victim. And that's a different show unto itself also. Point is, that's what we're facing. And when I say mental illness can and should be overcome, the people who fall into the perpetual victim category go, no, that's not what I was told. Or in the worst case scenario, this gal out of, I think it was Denmark, she's going to take her own life through medical assistance and dying made, because some psychiatrist told her that her borderline personality disorder is a permanent fixture in her life. Now, what that tells me is that her borderline personality disorder is so life interfering that it's currently affecting her. My ADHD is not ADHD anymore because it's not affecting me. I can retain, whatever focus for this podcast. I don't have ADHD. I'm not sitting here tapping. I am tapping pens and pencils, but that's one of my coping skills, right? I twirl a tangerine in the mornings when we record on Fridays, but it's not life interfering. I don't meet criteria. I don't have it. Bipolar disorder person doesn't have it if they've got all the safeguards in place. You no longer meet criteria. So I would love to have that conversation with somebody who is stridently rooted in where they are, because I would like to have my mind changed because I'm operating out of a construct from the DSM that says you have to meet criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 A B C D in order to have the name of the diagnosis. If you don't, you don't. But there's people walking around saying, yeah, my schizophrenia is well managed because I'm taking my Seroquel or whatever. All right, then you don't have schizophrenia. You've got a managed condition. It's not a thing anymore. And I think that that's just not popular speech. I think it just doesn't happen. So anyway, that's the 5 minute down and dirty.